Chill or Be Chilled by TotalSkeletonTrash. Chapter 10, in which you make some exceptionally poor hair choices. It turns out that everybody staying exactly where they are is literal. Episode after episode slides by, and you start to be thankful that you have the weekend off, because it's getting pretty damn late. Papyrus nods off first, slumping onto the arm of the sofa. Alphys is next, slowly migrating her head to Undyne's lap and then beginning to snore quietly. You turn to grin and point this out to Sans, but to your surprise, he's passed out too, his head tilted back and a relaxed expression on his face. You look at Undyne and receive several very broad winks and arm gestures from her for your trouble. She's noticed Sans' arm. You stick your tongue out from across the room at her and let your eyes close halfway as the next episode begins to autoplay. Soon Undyne is asleep too. Maybe you should do the same. It's probably the jillion cups of coffee that won't let you drift off. It's certainly not that you've forgotten how to relax around people. Right. 40 minutes later, you've run out of patience and you can't just hold still while everybody sleeps any longer. You painstakingly extricate your hand from under Sans and slide out of his hold. You brace yourself, but he doesn't stir. Good. You don't want to wake any of them. On nights like this, you just need to get outside. You don't feel so trapped when you can see the sky, so panicked when you look over the grounds of this stupid huge house, to the ocean, then the horizon, and remember that the entire world doesn't rest under the shadow of Mount Ebott, that you could always just grab Ghost and see what's out there, that you don't need to wait to be disappointed, that it's better to be the one doing the disappointing. You grab your coat off the back of the kitchen chair. You'd kind of given up on closets before Undyne cleaned everything up, and old habits die hard, and step outside. The night air is bracing, but unseasonably warm. Probably no white Christmas this year. Oh well. You glance up at the crescent moon, which lights the grounds well enough, and decide to pick your way through the painstakingly manicured backyard and find where Undyne had gotten the tree from. 15 minutes later, and you're almost at the rock wall separating the lawn from the beach. You're also at a loss. Nothing seems to be out of place, but maybe it's just the dark. Undyne couldn't just materialize a tree out of nowhere, after all. Deftly hopping the small retaining wall, your feet land on sand with a satisfying thud. You glance around quickly. There is nothing stopping anyone from wandering down the coastline until they reach your little beach, and you've had problems with groups of teenagers or drifters before. But luckily, everything seems deserted. Good. There's space to think out here. You search for a second, then find a good spot on the sloping, sandy beach and plop your butt down, leaning back and looking at the sky. Your mom knew all the constellations, every single one. You remember how she used to take you out here and tell you their stories, trying to explain how each cluster of stars resembled the things they'd been named after. It's calming. Orion there, Aquarius there, Canis Major, Canis Minor. Geez, can you tell a guy before you just up and split? You sit upright quickly, sending Sans scattering. Sans is looming over you, looking extremely displeased with you. Excuse me? You say, bristling. This is my house, Sans. I don't have to check in with anyone. I don't need anyone following me around, okay? You're not as mad as you sound, just startled and out of sorts. You've never taken anyone out here before. This has always just been for you, and you're feeling alarmed that he's able to just change the rules. Where the hell did you come from, anyway? He glares at you, his eye flashing. I woke up and you had just left us all, he snaps. Anyone could have seen a whole bunch of monsters show up at your house, and we all let our guard down, and you disappeared. God, what was I supposed to think? I don't know, that I'm a grown adult that doesn't need to be watched? Nothing's going to happen to me, Sans. I do this all the time. I've been getting by just fine on my own for a long, long time. And you can't keep acting like you guys are a liability to me, okay? Plenty of humans are friends with monsters now. It's not that big of a deal, you say irritably. I bet that's exactly what that little girl in the hospital's parents said, Sans says blackly. I bet they wish they watched her closer now. Yeah, well, you know what? You're getting worked up now, but you can't help it. You're not my parent, okay? You take a deep breath, then look down at your knees. It's not what I want, you mutter. Sans watches you for a second, and you can hear the sound of breath being drawn in between clenched teeth. Suddenly, he sits down next to you, his head hanging. Sorry, he mutters in return. You let the silence hang for a long, long time. It's okay, you finally whisper, not looking at him, looking out at the horizon. He hesitates, then groans and flops onto his back, looking up at the sky. So he's not going anywhere, then. You consider storming off, but even when you're caught off kilter, you realize how childish that would be. So after a while longer, you fall on your back by his side, looking up at the stars. Can you tell me what happened? He finally asks, sounding like he's regretting it even as he's saying it. You know what he's asking. The roads can get pretty icy up on those cliffs. You nod across the bay, where the lights at the foot of Mount Ebbet shine all night. I guess Dad took a turn too fast. I waited up all night for them. The police didn't even know where to start looking. You bite your lip. How old were you? His voice is so much gentler now, it's almost impossible to believe that it could have held so much anger before. 10. You whisper. You can feel his gaze probing you. How about you? You can tell the same way he can tell. You can just recognize from the way he treats you that he's been down that same road. He scratches his skull. It's a weird story. Magic complicates things, he whispers. I'll tell you sometime, promise. It's hard to wrap my skull around sometimes. You don't press it. You know the feeling. Is it normal for humans to leave kids on their own like that? He asks quietly after another long pause, still looking up at the sky. You let out a low chuckle and shake your head, getting sand in your hair. No, the will humans fill out like a letter thing to say what to do with their stuff when they die. Anyway, it said that my aunt should watch me. And, she did for a few months, but she was just 25. She was too young. She didn't know what she was doing. You were 10, Reed, Sans says darkly, barely older than Frisk. You sigh and nod. I'm not saying it was right. It was awful. She'd leave me a stack of my parents' money when she remembered it, but that wasn't always. Less and less often as the years went on. I guess she got pregnant a while back, and then she stopped leaving money altogether. At least by then, people would throw me a few bucks for odd jobs. I learned how to make a lot of rice and beans, macaroni, learned to fake a lot of signatures. I was hungry too often, and I was always lying. I couldn't invite anyone over, or they'd find out how bad things were. I didn't have any friends, except for Ghosty, anyway. I always thought I'd sell the place as soon as I turned 18, move somewhere smaller. I keep telling myself I will. You mutter. Then I go into their room. I think I'll get started boxing things up, and I don't. Sans lets out that strange, hissing sigh again, air forced between teeth grit so tightly they almost refuse to let anything past. What did your parents do? He asks after the silence grows companionable. Scientists, you say, trying to make out the individual stars in Orion's dagger. No kidding. He laughs quietly at some sort of private joke. What kind? You bite your lip. They, worked on the barrier at Mount Ebott. You explain. Back before we knew exactly what it was. I mean, that's why we lived so close. They built a device, a turbine, I guess, that they designed to draw power from it. You're kidding me. His voice is flat with astonishment. You roll on your side to look at him. Hand to God, I swear. Why, is that funny or something? It's hilarious. He doesn't look like it is. What was the machine supposed to do? It powered the whole county, you say with a laugh. Mom and Dad made a killing. Hence, the mansion. But I guess that wasn't the end goal. He's giving you that look again, like you're the most astonishing thing on the entire planet. They were adventurers, I guess, in like the old-fashioned Indiana Jones type way, larger than life. They always needed the next big thing. They thought they were going to be able to draw enough energy from the barrier to knock the damn thing down eventually. You say with a laugh. They wanted to be the first ones through. He stares at you for a long time, then shakes his head. What is it? We've just got a lot in common. He mutters and settles back. Man. He shakes his head again. The two of you stare up at the sky in silence once more. After a while, when you're just thinking that he might have fallen asleep again, he speaks up. You wouldn't believe what it was like, seeing the stars after the underground. I can't imagine, you mutter. What did you think when you saw them at last? It was like being born. That first week or so, everything was so much better than what I'd imagined. I can't remember ever seeing the sky meet water like that, or all the stars. Underground, we just had these rocks. They glowed. We thought it was close to the same, but it wasn't, not at all. Sans whispered. And you named them all. Sometimes humans can be so damn wonderful. You look at the sky and you find shapes and you name the shapes, and you make up stories about them, until they're not just stars, they're part of you. He turns his skull and looks hopefully at you. Do you know the names? You give him a small, sleepy smile. Some, you whisper. Look, that one's the easiest. It's called Orion. See the 3 stars in a row? That's his belt. And his shoulders are there, and his dagger is hanging from his belt. You list constellations for some time, pointing them out in the sky, your gestures growing less and less energetic. Sans watches you when you stop naming them, and sees the steady rhythm of your chest rising and falling, fast asleep. You don't stir the whole way back into the house, curled into his arms. Hey everyone, thank you so much for listening. If you liked it, hit the like button to let me know and subscribe to see what I make next. Links in the description lead to the original fic posted on AO3, as well as my Patreon and Ko-fi. If you like my stuff, please consider supporting me. Every little bit helps. Lastly, if you have a request for a recording, whether a one-shot or a series, let me know in the comments. I also do commissions, details of which are on my Patreon. So keep in touch. Bye!